welcome to the Young Nations podcast of the Young Nation.
Fair enough. That's
we
good.
didn't even tell her what the intro was. She just, Rafeef. Welcome. This is Rafeef.
Hi.
Rafeef
introduce
has watched
yourself.
all of our episodes so far, so
Rafeef.
that's why I'm very excited to have her on today.
Who are you? Introduce yourself. Give us a little rundown of who you are.
So my name is Rafeef Kilani. I study at the University of Waterloo, and I'm
Raise your volume.
currently doing economics and business, I guess. What else do you want to know?
Okay, where are you from?
So I'm originally Palestinian, but I grew up in the UAE.
Okay, Abu Dhabi?
Yes,
Abu Dhabi.
the capital.
The capital. Sharjah's still better than Abu Dhabi, don't worry. But yeah, so today, welcome to this episode, guys. Today we're going to be talking about goals, right? Goal setting, motivations for goals, and productivity, and a whole bunch of other different themes to do with that. Before we continue, please like, comment, subscribe, review,
Please.
all that all that social media stuff. Make sure you do that. And yeah, with that being said, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. Number one fan.
You actually might be the number one
I
fan.
think you are.
You actually, yeah. 100%.
We had one, and I'm calling you out because you stopped listening to our episodes.
Who is he?
She.
Who is she?
You know who.
I actually don't know.
I don't want to name drop because then I feel bad. I'll tell you after.
Okay, tell me after.
I'll
Tell me
tell you
after. This episode, by the way, it could not have been more like sporadic. Like I was supposed to get up earlier and set the time. Hussein had like an appointment in the early morning, so he was depending on me like Zaid wake up at this time and set the podcast up.
I said it like
100 times.
Zaid, please. And Zaid was like, Hussein, let me come with you to your appointment. I was like, no, I don't want you to come for the simple reason that I need you to stay sleeping so you can be awake to set up the podcast. Because Rafeef doesn't live in Waterloo. She lives in Mississauga. She came down to Waterloo for studies. And she was like, okay, I'll stick around for an hour to film the podcast. But I have a meeting. Mm-hmm. So now we're going to have to cut the episode in two because...
So much detail.
Yeah. No, and
I come home. I'm like, Zaid, at 11:30, I want to come home. And like, audio testing has been done. The place is clean. We're ready to record. All we have to do is sit down and start talking. I come home. It's still a dump.
As you can see, we cleaned up.
I go to
Words
Zaid.
can't see.
He's asleep. 11:20. He has not woken up.
I set my alarm. I missed my alarm. I can't lie.
So yeah, we're gonna have to do a little intermission, and I'm gonna have to go for my meeting and come back. And Rafeef has been so kind and agreed to stick around and wait for me. Thank you very much. Anyways,
With that
enough,
being said,
jibber jabber. Wait, Zaid,
What
can
did you
you make it so that it shows the minutes?
okay. What did you just say?
Jibber jabber.
Jibber jabber. But yeah, so let's get right into it then. Rafeef, you are obviously a very like a driven person. Why don't you give like the listener a little bit of background and like what you do, what your current like I don't know, like your work or your goals at the moment are before we dive into like the process of getting to them.
Sure. So I am currently in school, but I'm also working full time. I got an internship with the government of Canada. And this has been going on since May, so I've been in school full time and working full time since. I hope my boss doesn't see this because I told him I was in school. Yeah, and ever since I was like in the 9th grade, I had like the goal of like studying law and then hopefully getting into politics and having like that stand to make that kind of change. And thankfully it hasn't changed. People tell you, oh, it'll definitely change soon enough. But alhamdulillah, I've been pretty keen on it. And yeah, everything I've done has led up to that.
Okay. And when you say you want to go into politics, why is that?
So not necessarily go into politics. I just want to make a change. And I believe the best way for me to do that as Rafeef is probably to have that stand because of I'm not the influencer type.
Okay.
I don't think I'd have enough content to make a podcast like you guys. So
You'd be surprised.
through exploring my options, I just believe that would be the best way, especially considering that like unfortunately our background it's full of injustice, and being just knowing that like knowledge is power, following through with that and kind of getting that knowledge to be able to give back to the community.
Okay. Then I have let me give the controversial question off the top so we can start the discussion then. So, a lot of times when you tell people, and like honestly, I want to find out about this too. So, a lot of the times when you tell people, oh, I'm going into politics, or like I want to be a politician, or like I want to run, or something, right? Like, people will very quickly get skeptical because they'll be like, oh, it's like a corrupt system in every country. Like it's a corrupt system. You're gonna start running and you're gonna start getting exposed to like the shady characters and all that stuff, and then your motivations are gonna change for why you're doing it, and like you already touched on it a little bit. What's your take on that then?
So obviously you can't plan for everything. I try really hard. I have like 17 backup plans, but you can't plan for everything. And I just know that the way I was raised and like the morals I've had growing up kind of led me to where I am. And have been some situations where people have tried to peer pressure me or change me, but thankfully, alhamdulillah is thank God. I say that
It's
a lot.
okay. Yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
So I ended up changing them for the better rather than them changing me.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up also not with the mindset of, I need money, like I want to get the most money. People tell me, oh, you're going into law to make money. And I'd be like, no, I'm actually going in to help people who can't help themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Even if that means I won't make the most money, it's okay because I know I'll be making the difference to someone in a sense. So I know that with these morals and values, it's not going to be the easiest to succeed maybe.
Mm-hmm.
There will be some obstacles. And being in politics doesn't require you to be dishonest. You might be more favored if you are, or you might be in a better position, or people might perceive you in a different way. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, I believe that the things that I stand for are correct and people agree with them. And I don't think I'll have to change that to gain the public's liking or to make my points come across.
Okay. But then, like, do you foresee any issues potentially where, like, and like this happens in a lot of different countries. I don't know about Canada, but like, do you see it potentially in the future where it's like, oh, if you don't accept a bribe or if you don't accept this deal or whatever, then your chances of succeeding in an election or something are very diminished, and then you have to face that conundrum of whether to get your feet dirty a little bit just for the right reasons. Like, what would you do in that type of situation?
So I've actually had this conversation multiple times with a few people who know a lot more than I do.
Did you raise your volume when you had them?
Sorry.
It's okay.
So I've had this conversation with a lot of people who have more knowledge than me, and they have stated that they've asked me exactly the same question, and they'd be like, would you do bad for the ultimate goal of good?
Mm-hmm.
And one person once told me, you can't do good with bad. And that's like a way of thinking, not necessarily correct, it's an opinion, but you never know who you're going to harm with that bad that you did. Mm-hmm. To get to that further good. And you don't know, like, in a sense, I know this is kind of cryptic because I'm just saying bad and good.
Okay.
But you don't know the opportunity cost of what you just did. Like, you don't know if the good is actually much better than how much you harmed that person. Mm-hmm. So I know it might significantly diminish my chances, but at that rate, my point at the end of the day, my goal at the end of the day is to help people. Mm-hmm. If I have run, then enough people know me. Hopefully I'll have that platform to be able to speak up. Even if I'm not successful in politics specifically, I'm sure I can make a change some other way.
Okay. So in terms of your goal, so your goal is ultimately, like, regardless of what you're doing, your goal is to make the change in people's lives to help it better, right?
Yes.
If you find out one day that, for example, maybe politics is not the avenue, do you switch avenues or are you...
So I'm actually, like I said, I've had multiple backup plans. The fact that I'm studying economics and business with a bit of finance right now is also because that's another route I could take. I could have a stable job in economics and finance that brings in the income to be able to support my want to help people with law, since I would be qualified in both.
Okay.
So there are possibilities, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Like, how do you find, like, you've already said you've had like certain opportunities to do bad and stuff, and you turned them down or you mitigated them in a way. How do you find, like, when something comes to attack your goals or the to attack the end result, some kind of obstacle comes in your pathway that will alter what you end up doing? How do you stay focused on your objective?
That's actually something that Hussein said. I'm not sure if he just said it to me or on the podcast. He said that having having a guilty conscience is a blessing.
Mm.
Because if you have
Yeah, do your thing.
if you have a guilty conscience, that's what makes you always go back. Even if you do something wrong, you'll feel bad about it and you'll regret it and you will not do it again. And I think my guilty conscience stems mostly because I feel like my parents have given me everything and I just couldn't bear to like let them down or have them be disappointed in me or whatever. So shout out to Mama and Baba Kilani.
Shout out. I think that's super important. Like
Nice
sometimes,
words, by the way. Whoever said that. Wow.
you know.
Ego. I listened to that episode this morning.
There it
Right
is. Yeah, you Rafeef is also super tapped into all the episodes. Like she always listens and
They
gives
drive me
feedback.
to and from Waterloo. That's a big favor.
No, for sure. But I think that's the one thing that sometimes people do a lot of the time is people fall in love with the process. Like you have the goal, you start with it, then you fall in love with whatever you're doing, the process, and then you forget about your goal, and now you're just doing what you're doing, and then something
I think you're the
happens.
only one that's like that.
Huh?
I think you're the only one I know that's like that.
No, there's like it's not. I'm not saying everybody's like that or like a lot of
I
people
hate the
aren't like
process.
that. No, like let's say for example, مثلا you go into something with the goal of like I don't know, for this podcast the goal was to help people in even like regardless of who listens, if I even just help one person, that was good.
Yeah.
Because I'm passionate about this. Then suddenly along the way I more fall in love with the process, not like in any different type of way, but more in the sense that like, oh, I'm now looking at, oh, this episode didn't do as good views as the last one. Or in the next episode, I'm scared about the views. How do I promote it correctly? How do I, whatever. And I get so lost in those. And I'm just doing everything I can to get the podcast as out there as possible to where I'll lose the mindset of I'm really just here to help out people and do what I can for even like that one person, the same way I set out my objective from the beginning, right? So like it sometimes it happens. You lose your
Happens a lot more. That's touches back on the point of like politicians and you're
Yeah.
like what would you do if you had to change or anything like that.
a lot of people like in that field, a lot of people fall in love with power, which is the most worrying thing because power always like it can corrupt you, right?
It can, but again, I don't think I can speak for everyone, but at certain points you don't feel like you're missing anything. Same thing of like when people try to peer pressure me. I don't feel like I need to do that to fit in. If you don't want me because I don't do that, then there's a billion others who might want me. You know what I mean? Like it's not that deep.
It's different. I feel like it's different when there's money on the table. Like it's
But-
right, like to be 100% all the way. It's not you and it's not me. It's everybody. It's different when there's money on the table.
It definitely is, but that's where the backup plans come in handy. Like I'm aware of the economy that we live in and I'm aware of the life that we lead, and you were saying how like you could be uncomfortable and be making a certain amount of money, and I know my lifestyle and how I grew up and what I want and what I don't want. So the money will come with doing good. If you can't do good and get money as a lawyer or as a politician, then you can do that in economics and finance by doing your job correctly. You know?
So it's like you set out like a bunch of different plans and stuff like that for you
Ever
to
since
follow.
I was a kid, plan A to D.
You know, there's a saying: we plan and God laughs.
Yeah.
We plan it. That's like I think that's the one thing that life has taught me is just like I'm the opposite. I used to be like you. Now I'm the opposite. Now I'm like I don't care.
You plan and then you change. Like I think the plans I've had since I left high school, I had 7 options of like how my life was gonna go, and I chose one of them, which was coming to Waterloo, and then my life has changed so many times since then. But you still kind of like you embrace the chaos and you kind of plan through it. You know?
I think it's helpful to maintain, like, whatever happens in life, I have a core set of values and principles, and anything else can happen.
Yeah.
But those are the ones that I...
Not only, like, yeah, if you told me before I came to uni that this is what I'm going to be doing, and that after uni my career is going to be more into, like, the sports world, I would have told you, like, that, no, that's
Not possible.
bullshit. Like, there's no way I'm going to do some boring office job, right? And although plans changed and I had planned everything and everything changed, me getting to where I got to in my career area, I still plan everything. And I know, like, I have the next 3 years of my life planned to the day. And
I feel like that's a trap. No,
I know for
I feel like that's a trap.
I know for a fact this plan is not going to go to plan. But I still plan it.
Yeah.
And then when it changes, I will replan. And then when that changes, I will replan. I know it's not gonna work, but to just say, it does, we'll just do it when it happens, and no, like I
Look,
feel like
I feel like there's a difference with that because there's difference between being careless and not paying attention to your circumstances, and between knowing exactly what job you're gonna have 5 years from now or 10 years from now or whatever, right? Like, there's a big difference in that. So I would challenge you, and I would honestly say like maybe it's better to like know your objectives, but the means of getting there will change all the time because things change all the time. Like, what if, for example, you no longer continue with whatever boxing entity you're working with and you have to pivot and go to another one? Like, if you plan, you attach a certain sense of emotion to that plan, right? So now if I've set out, I've put effort and I've said, okay, this is what's gonna happen. I've sat for 2 hours, I've made this plan, or 1 hour, I've made this plan that I want to do this and that and this and that. Small thing changes in the middle, the whole plan is irrelevant now.
not
But you know your objectives, you know
not
what you want to do.
necessarily. If you're like, I'm at point A, I want point B. This is my plan to get there, and the plan messes up. You still know I want to get to point B. So now, how else do I get to point B? You're still getting to point B. That's where it's good to have that emotional attachment to your plan, because you're like, you know what? I care so much about point B. I'm not gonna stop just because I'm not gonna create a different point B because this route.
Okay, then I have a question.
When the highway's backed up, what do? You take the bypass, right?
I have a question. Is that a plan or is that the goal that you're focused on, the point B?
You create a plan to reach your goal.
But then you said things change and you're
then you
focused on the
replan.
point B.
You replan
But is point B a plan or a goal?
a target, a goal.
There you go. Right?
But it's still, I mean,
Why are you're always so focused on the exact word and definition? But
No,
let's,
because
discuss the
like
concept.
no, the concept, like, it's getting muddy. You know what I mean? Like, when you say, oh, I'm planning and I care about my plan and I want to reach plan B, and if things change, I'm still focused on point B. Like, point B is the goal, right? There's a certain goal that you want to achieve. The plan, the way of getting there will change and it's fluid, because no one can tell anybody exactly 3 years from now I'm going to be working at this company, I'm going to be doing this, I'm going to be doing that. Exactly. We don't know.
It's not. You don't say I'm gonna be. I hope to be. And if you're not, then you're not. Simple.
I think we should cite our sources because this is from episode, I don't know, I think it's 3 when Zach was talking about
Episode 10.
Episode 10? Really? I watched it as a third episode. But anyways, that's when he was talking about when you make a plan, God bless it.
Yeah.
So I think both of what you're saying is valid, but he's shown that you can plan, get laughed at, detour, have a goal, and then get there.
I think I speak from a perspective of somebody who used to plan a lot, in every single detail, and then now I'm like, wherever life takes me, it'll take me.
Yeah, but you're not doing that without a plan. Regardless, you have a target. Having a target is kind of like also planning in one way or another.
Okay, tell me if you agree. I feel like it's good to set like short-term plans, like
I have
short-term
both.
goals, and then long-term is like the big target, like.
Well, you have to be
You
working
know?
towards something. So
Yeah.
I've actually been made fun of for having vision boards, but
No,
they're
vision
amazing.
boards are great.
They're amazing.
No, I'm joking.
No, they're actually amazing because you get to see like long term what you want to achieve, and then you're like, okay, for me to run this country, in the next month I have to get 100% on my test. Like like it's very very like easy to do that, and people are like, what's the relation? You're like, no, there is a relation. It's just how it is.
Yeah, every small little building block helps you in a certain way to get to the overall goal. Because you could take that same mindset and, like you said, you started gymming recently. You could take that same mindset and put it in the gym, right? If I don't do this last set of this workout, it's just a set. But if I want to gain a certain amount of muscle mass or slim down or whatever, this set's important because it's one of the small steps in the building blocks
But
towards.
you see how so for me, I think this is where it would be interesting to get Hassan's input, in my opinion, because for me the gym is the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life.
Because you're new to it.
Not because I'm new to it. I've tried before and it's hard for me to get into it. It's not something that people tell me you will grow to love it, you will grow to enjoy it. I've tried to. I just maybe not for me, but I'm still like going for healthy. Maybe one day like I'll grow that love and affection. And on the contrary, if you tell me like work on this business plan, work on this business model, look up these numbers, do this financial study, I'm more than happy to work on it for like 3 nights in a row. Whereas Hassan would go work out for like 17 days and then you come and tell him do this business plan, you'll find him at the gym. You know what I mean? So it's like an interesting. It also depends on where your motivations lie.
Like, but that's more. Yeah, that's true. But I feel like it also more towards like make sure your goals line up with your interests.
Yeah.
Right? Like if I'm setting a goal for something, I have to make sure that like I'm doing it for the right reasons and I'm interested in staying alive and like what I do. Because if you put yourself or me in Hassan's position, you have to go to do like boxing coaching or whatever. Like I don't care about boxing coaching like that. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna go and do like 10 hours at some place just so I can learn about getting a boxing certification just so I can do this and that.
God,
like
that weekend was so hard. No, that was
shout out to Welland, Ontario.
Anyways, moving on. There's another thing that I wanted to talk about. Actually, I want to discuss this with the two of you.
Okay, also, very quickly before you start, sorry for the noise in the background. There's maintenance going on in my room, so I apologize in advance for that.
Background story will be provided later.
Yeah, it might be a bonus episode. It's a story worth hearing. Like, from now till Judgment Day, if you guys guess what happened to my room, you will never guess what happened to my room. But,
anyways, there was one night in Ramadan, we were all hanging out in the student center, and we got to having like this really, really long conversation. And I picked your brains about something that was... like very deep. We were talking about like our outlooks on like life and situations and people and like are people inherently good or are people inherently evil? What do we like? How do we perceive? How do we trust? And we got to having like a really, really informative conversation, and I came away from that conversation thinking a lot of things. It made me really reconsider and then later reaffirm my viewpoint, and I just was hoping we could discuss it. So
I'm a bit clueless, so just tell us what you wanna.
Just to like give you like I'm gonna ask you guys both a broad question. Rafeef first. Would you say you have a positive or a negative outlook on life?
I think I have a realistic outlook on life.
Pessimistic.
I'll give the same answer. 100%.
No, yeah, I think that like I'm positive at times and I'm negative at times depending on the situation, but I try to be as positive as possible, even if it's a negative situation.
Okay.
But as positive as possible doesn't mean like I can definitely do this like you, because I know you're always like, yeah, I can do this. I'm like, I can probably do this.
Okay, say you're like waiting for a result. Do you wait in positive anticipation or in negative anticipation?
Well, that depends. So, like, if I'm waiting for, like, a medical result, I believe, like, you should be always positive and, like, praying that it's a positive result. If it's an academic result, I honestly stopped caring. I don't wait for it. When it comes, it comes, exactly, kind of. Because if any anticipation for it is going to be negative. There's not, because if you anticipate a high grade and you get a low one, or if you anticipate a low one and you get a high one, it's always, like...
And what about people? Like, okay, there's one thing you said to me. If you don't want me to, if you don't want this to be on the podcast, tell me, I'll cut it. But there's one thing you said to me.
I'll cut it like he's the editor.
And
you know what? I'll cut it.
But yeah, you said this, and like it really stuck with me. Not because it offended me. I don't particularly care. But it was just like you're like, I said I don't trust anyone. I don't even trust you. And it wasn't like, oh, Rafeef doesn't trust me. But it was like personally, without disrespecting you, I thought that was really sad. Like, I'm very, very, very trusting. I trust a lot of people. It's like, yeah, when you betray my trust, I'm less likely to ever trust you again. But until you do that, I will give you my trust, you know, and I will put my faith in you. And I've done that with so many people. And I've repeatedly had that trust broken with person X, person Y, person Z. But then because person A misused my trust, does that mean that I shouldn't ever give that to person B? You know what I mean? Like, it was just like and I'm only using myself as an example because I'm part of the example. Again, like, this is not like, Rafeef doesn't trust me. Like, you don't trust me. Okay, no problem. Have I done anything to prove to you that you cannot trust me?
Okay, so...
Yeah, when the answer comes out, yes.
No, I'm just gonna, like, kind of put things in perspective a little bit. So for me, trust is such a hard concept to explain. I think I've had this conversation with so many of my friends, and I'm completely open. Like, you ask me about anything, I will answer you openly and honestly, right? And there's nothing that I'm hiding. So the concept of trust in and of itself is a tough one for me to explain or to kind of explain my nature or like why I say this, because there's nothing I'm hiding. It's not like I'm not telling you something or that's because I don't trust you or I'm afraid of you or something. No. By trust, I mean like the concept of fully 100% trusting someone for me is knowing that no matter what happens, no matter anything, they're going to have your back, they're going to be there, they're not going to change their perspective on you, they're not going to leave you, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't really fall under trust, but like that kind of comes in the betrayal thing that you were speaking about. So I give everyone 100%. I don't hide. You want whatever you want from me, you can have it. Like I'm 100% open. But the only two people that I genuinely believe will always have my best interest in their heart and try and get it in any way they can, even if it's sometimes in a weird way, are my mother and my father. They will sacrifice whatever it is to give me like whatever I need to survive. I've never had siblings. I don't know if that's the same, but I've heard people say that I wouldn't trust my sibling. You know,
I think that depends on your relationship with your sibling. Like, me and Hussein have a very healthy trust, like in that way.
I mean, I've had people who have multiple siblings, and then they'll be like, yeah, I can't trust this sibling specifically. Like, I feel like they'll stab me in the back. Like, people have this thought process, and that's, like, it's more so a fear. I wasn't always like this. I never really thought about it like that. But the more you kind of grow up and you're attached to people, I'm the kind of person who will attach really quickly. Like, you know, I'll love a person, I'll give you everything. You're one of my closest friends. And like, if I say I don't trust you, it means I really don't trust anyone else because I tell you everything, right? And like, I mean, Zaid, if you ask me anything, am I going to tell you, no, I can't say it? Like, everything you ask me about, I've told you, and I think I've overshared multiple times. It's not like, when trust comes out like that, it's not necessarily the definition that you think about, but it's just the really long-term version that I feel like you shouldn't expect anything from anyone.
Yeah.
See, that's where I differ. Because I'm like, in terms of like the whole sharing aspect, I don't share. I don't really share. That doesn't mean I don't trust. Like, there's so many people in this world that I trust, but there's like 3 people that I share with, or 2 people, or 1, however. I don't, like, it's not something I do, right? For me, it's like that concept of like, if it's 3 a.m. and I call them and I tell them I killed someone, I need you to help me bury the body, will they come? And I know they will.
Oh my God.
Who's that?
Police, for legal purposes, this is a joke.
I will never, ever, ever commit murder.
If you're talking about someone who'll be there in your time of need, I was talking to Zaid about that. I actually, like, since the conversation that we've had, I evaluated. And I've been thinking a lot about what I said. Because I also said something that night. I was like, always expect the worst from people.
That's what I wanted. I was leading up to that. Please, elaborate.
So, I actually retract that statement. I think... No, but listen why.
You've just screwed up the audio listener. Thank you.
No, I mean, I want to say...
What Zaid farted. When you can gather yourself, feel free to continue.
What were we saying?
I love how we started filming at 12. It's 3:30.
Wait, okay. What were we saying? Oh, okay. I changed my mind in terms of like, I don't think I expect the worst from people, or assume the worst of people. I think I just meant to say, don't expect anything from anyone. Why is that? People help, and people are there for you. But everyone kind of runs on their own schedule. No one's at your beck and call. Like, I can't just call someone up and be like, listen, I'm going through this. I need your help, and expect them to be there. And
so how about this approach then? So what if you, instead of calling someone and be like, I'm going through this, I expect you to be there. What if you instead say, I'm going through this. When are you available to talk?
See, that's also possible. But when people, like, that's...
So you consider, like, their availabilities in their life.
Exactly, and how they're doing. And if they're even mentally in the right space to talk to you about whatever you're going through, right? And I feel like that's taken negatively sometimes. Like, oh, I called you and you didn't pick up. You don't care about me. I think that's the overthinking aspect that plays into it. And when I say you shouldn't expect anything, because I was just telling Zaid about this, actually. I was looking at the toughest times that I went through in the past year or two. The toughest times, which alhamdulillah, thank God, there hasn't been many because, you know, I consider myself to be in a very good position and very privileged. Alhamdulillah, yeah. So, what's it called? Every single time I've had a tough situation, the people helping me were never like close friends or people that I've known for years or someone that I had to call to help me. Sometimes it's an acquaintance. Sometimes it's a stranger. Sometimes it's someone who's just been in a similar situation and wants to offer a hand. Hussein was actually there for me. Hussein and I have met in December 2021. It hasn't been very long. We've known each other for 6 months. Even you and I met then.
I think you met him a bit earlier than me, but yeah. No,
No,
same
bowling.
time in
Same
the
time,
yeah,
yeah.
the bowling event at Wasa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So Hussein and I have known each other for 6 months. I think he stuck by me in like more really bad situations than a lot of my lifelong friends have. And that's just because you're nice. Like you're genuine. You're genuine.
I'm a nice boy.
No, and like you know how you'd say like, oh, like you. I remember once you told me like, oh, you're such a good person, or I have no idea why you think that of me. You know, I have no idea what I did to help you because again, what I was saying, do nice and throw it in the ocean. It's the saying. "أعمل منيح واركب البحر." You do good and you just forget about it because if you keep remembering and oh, I did this for you and you didn't do anything back and whatever, it's not gonna end well. I have no idea why you think I'm such a good person, but I'm very happy. I'm very grateful. And the fact that he stuck by me in these situations that were really tough on me, like mentally, physically at times, like it was very bad. I considered you at the time to be an acquaintance. We only got really close after some of the issues, you know?
Yeah.
And you know what? Like, I know you would be there for me in the future. And like, I know that. But when I go and I help people, I expect to be the acquaintance or the stranger that was able to help them out because someone else couldn't. So that's why I say don't expect anything from people because when people say expect something in return or don't expect something in return, they mean for people you've helped. But people in general can have like a nice time and they can be good people and they can help you in times of need. Trust me, I know that. I am very aware of that.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like so Hussein was, you know how you give the mindset of like, oh, I'm very trusting. I'm very like, I'll give you your trust until you give me a reason not to give it to you. I work the opposite way, right? So I'm like, I don't give my trust. And it takes like a while for me to get to know this person. Okay, this person's good, whatever. Then I might share with them a little bit. And even then I won't expect them to be around if I need something. And then for that to happen, it needs like a long time. And there's like a few people in life that I have that expectation. Hassan made it.
Yeah.
But like when you were like, so you like from what I've seen from your like the way you conduct yourself is you very much like to be, like you said, be that stranger who helps people, whatever. And for me, I didn't understand that, and a part of me still doesn't understand that. You know what I mean? Like, so when Hussein said, oh, like, for example, Rafeef did this, or Rafeef had this, like, she came to the iftar and she brought, like, food for us, and basbousa, and all, like, these, shout out, thank you, by the way, for the basbousa. But when all these things happen, now I'm like, my first thought is not, like...
She didn't just make basbousa. She, like... And by the way, I didn't actively go and tell her Zaid has like a calorie thing where he can only eat what he can track calorie wise. I didn't tell her that. I still don't know how you knew that at that time.
Podcast.
And she came and she was like, I made basbousa, and I didn't even like think that Zaid like was even a part of this. So I thought it was all for me. And then she goes, Zaid, I made basbousa for both of you. And Zaid goes, oh no, it's okay, thank you, calories. And she's like, well, here's the nutritionist information. I logged it all for you so you can actually be able to eat it.
It took a while to log that in.
Yeah, that must have been crazy, so thank you. But like, do you see, my first thought was not like thank you, my first thought is why. Like I have just been put in that situation before where somebody was nice to me in the beginning or like or at face value, and then when I got to know them a bit better, I saw like a very sneaky motivation behind it. So it's not the judgment on you, it's more like my mindset of, okay, so why is this the case? How come like, to be honest, at the time especially, I really didn't know you like that, right? So I was like, why? I didn't get it, you know what I mean? So that turns me more skeptical. Now I'm thinking, okay, I'm even less inclined than I was to actually open up to this person or trust this person because I don't understand. There's
I
people.
didn't make the cut, basically.
No, that's not what I mean to say. Like, obviously, I've grown a little bit to try to get it more over the time that I've known you and stuff like that, and I've appreciated it a lot more. But at the same time, it's like because of past experiences, it's very hard for me to like leave trust. It's very hard for me to compute it. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
there's people that I've known for a long time in my life that will not even like lift a finger to help me if I was in a bad situation. You know what I mean? So I just get very confused. That's the word.
I mean, you know, I think the person that I look up to most obviously are my parents, but the person who I think has bore the, I don't know if that's the correct past tense, the brunt of all of this
Yeah, you're